Hey everybody, so for my thinking aloud, I chose the Hunger Games. I thought it would be really fun to read this book. And so when I look at the cover, it doesn't really tell me much. It just, says the Hunger Games. So how do I know what this book is about without reading this, right? So when I think of the Hunger Games, I think that there's got to be some things happening where people are either playing for something or fighting for something, and so we're gonna dive in and see what we have in here. So the first thing that I have is on page 7 is at the very bottom here. So if you've got your book, you can just follow along. But it says, his expression brightens at the treat. Thank you, Prim. We'll have a real feast. Suddenly, he falls into a capital accent as he mimics Effie Trinket, the manically upbeat woman who arrives once a year to read out the names at the reaping. I almost forgot. Happy Hunger Games. He plucks a few blackberries from the bushes around us, and may the odds. He tosses a berry in high arc toward me. I catch it in my mouth and break the delicate skin with my teeth. The sweet tartness explodes across my tongue. Be ever in your favor. I finish with equal fervor. We have to joke about it, because the alternative is to be scared out of your wits. Besides, the capital accent is so affected, almost anything sounds funny in it. So just reading that small excerpt, it's just small, is... I have to start thinking about what they're doing. So when he talks about, plucking the blackberry from the bush, I can see that in my head. I can actually see them sitting there and plucking the blackberries off of the bush and tossing it over to his friend, and her actually biting into that and seeing that. Just this berry burst and have a lot of fruit juice in her mouth. So anyway, I can also see them being silly, and I don't know what this accent is, but I am hearing something other than the way that I speak, and it being silly. So not only am I picturing things in my mind, I'm also hearing things that I would think would be happening based on what's going on in this particular passage. There's another passage, actually, that I wanted to read, and it says, the conversation feels all wrong. Leave. How could I leave Prim, who's the only person in the world I'm certain I love? And Gale is devoted to his family. We can't leave, so why bother talking about it? And even if we did, where did this stuff about having kids come from? There's never been anything romantic between Gale and me. So just reading, again, that very small passage on page 10, I find that somebody is really devoted to this one person, Prim. And there's nothing that could keep them from this person. And so I want to go into thinking, okay, so now I know that there's Gale, and he's devoted to his family, and that's who's sitting with this other person, and this other person is devoted to Prim, and something's going on in their town that is making them, talk about leaving. And so what's so bad that's making them want to leave? So let's look at, if we look at page 20, at the very bottom of that page, we can see here at the very bottom, it says Effie Trinket, who they were just speaking of, by the way. She's the lady with the funny accent. Crosses back to the podium, smooths the slip of paper, and reads out the name in a clear voice. And it's not me. It's Primrose Everdeen. And I'm going to continue on to the next page One time was when I was in a blind in a tree, waiting motionless for game to wander by. I dozed off and fell 10 feet to the ground, landing on my back. It was as if the impact had knocked every wisp of air from my lungs, and I lay there struggling to inhale, to exhale, to do anything. That's how I feel now, trying to remember how to breathe, unable to speak, totally stunned, as the name bounces around the inside of my skull. Someone is gripping my arm, a boy from the scene, and I think maybe I started to fall, and he caught me. There must have been some mistake. This cannot be happening. Prim was one slip of paper in thousands. Her chances of being chosen so remote that I'd not even bothered to worry about her. Hadn't I done everything? Taken the, this is a hard word, so we go into tesserae. Refused to let her do the same. One slip in thousands. The odds had been entirely in her favor, but it hadn't mattered. So Prim was chosen, and it sounds like, we go into the, what is this word? Why is Prim being chosen? And it's saying there's thousands of slips of paper, so they must be choosing paper, a person's name to do this Hunger Games, as they speak of, as the day is come that Hunger Games is to occur. So I think we have to keep reading in order to really figure out what's going on in the Hunger Games. But it sounds like an interesting book just from what I've read so far, and I think it'll be a fun read for secondary students. So, seeing her struggling to breathe, and really just picturing that in my mind is how I'm actually, when I'm reading a book myself, I can actually see the person and what they're doing. I actually visualize what is happening. And so I'm developing my images. And so I'm also linking the information that I've read previously into what I'm currently reading in this chapter here. So, moving on, I think this is a really good book. Again, a fun read, and it's good to go back if you don't understand something. If you're not sure of a word, then it's good to continue reading and using context clues and really understanding what they're trying to say. So when we go back, I'd have to find it here. Anyway, so just going back and reading and continuing to read, and if you have to go back and reread a section to understand a word that you may not know, that's okay, because I think that would help anyway. So, good book to read for fun, The Hunger Games. I hope that was helpful. If not, I'd be willing to talk to you. So, have a good night.